UK's largest real estate website, Rightmove, says the Bank of England's recent decision to cut interest rates has sparked a welcome late summer boost in buyer activity. Well, while asking prices have dipped, Rightmove is predicting a busy autumn for the housing market. Meanwhile, China's housing market is in crisis, with prices falling, apart from luxury properties. The latest Rightmove House Price Index then reveals that average asking prices in the UK dropped in the first weeks of August by 1.5% between July and August, mainly due to the summer holiday slowdown when many people go on holiday instead of house hunting. But this year's market dynamics are unique. The Bank of England's first interest rate cut in 4 years, from 5.25% to 5%, led to a decrease in the average 5-year fixed rate mortgage to 4.8% from 5.82% a year ago, saving homeowners hundreds and hundreds of pounds a year. That's meant cheaper mortgages, or more cheaper mortgages, from high street lenders, and significantly, it's also boosted buyer demand. Well, as a result, the number of potential buyers has increased by 19% compared to the same period last year. That's up from the 11% increase in July. Rightmove now predicting a busy autumn, with average asking prices expected to rise by 1%. Before, it said it'd be falling. On the other side of the world, different story. China's property market facing big challenges, with new home prices declining for the 14th consecutive month in July. The top 100 developers have reported a 40% drop in home sales during the first half of the year. Despite the overall downturn in China's property market, there was one bright spot for those that can afford it in the luxury market, with sales of premium homes increasing for 7 months in a row. Right, let's dig into this then with Steve Keen, who's an honorary professor at London Global University, UCL in London. Steve, good to see you. First of all, I think most people think there will be at least one more interest rate cut in the UK before the end of the year. Are you then expecting the housing market to pick up significantly?
Well, I'd rather see the economy pick up than the housing market, frankly. But yes, it probably will boost the housing market a bit because it reduces the cost of carrying a mortgage. But it's hardly a good idea to have rising house prices when they're already at the highest level they've ever been historically. And that's one reason why you're getting so much social unrest in the UK. The poor and the middle class can't afford to buy housing anymore, and that's not the sign of a healthy economy.
Yeah, but I guess the problem with if we just stay with the UK, the problem with the housing market in the UK, as many people know, there's always been significant demand, but it's been far outstripped by supply. And the new government has said they're going to build more houses, they're going to try and increase supply, but that takes time.
It does, and the one reason that the UK has been in a housing crisis with too high house prices for decades now is the decision to cut out council housing 40 years ago under Maggie Thatcher. The idea was the private market would make up the difference. It has not. A housing market building by the private sector that's remained roughly constant for 40 years. So what's actually happened? There are less houses now because of the removal of council house building and government house building, and that stupid policy should be reversed.
Yeah. So, given that, if I'm an investor, though, do I still think about buying that, one-bed flat in West London in the UK?
I don't call you an investor, I call you a speculator. And I think that's actually been one major reason why the UK economy has suffered so much. It's gone from being a production economy to a speculative economy. Sure, if you want to do it, go right ahead. But that's why we're in the stink these days.
Yeah.
That's why the Conservative lost to the Labor Party, and the Labor Party looked like repeating the same mistakes.
Yeah, but there's a bigger stink on the other side of the world in China when it comes to property. What's been their problem? Because clearly there's a huge supply. In fact, it's the flip of the UK, isn't it? There's a huge supply and much smaller demand.
Well, China was doing very well out of the export market alone right up until the global financial crisis back in 2007. And the government's response was, because the government in China doesn't actually own all the banks, but it basically controls them. They basically told the banks to lend to anybody with a pulse. An enormous property boom took off. I've been in some of these buildings which are basically empty shells, and the volume of housing credit was simply ridiculous. And now there's an overhang from that, again, a policy driven by the government trying to avoid a downturn, which just created houses with tower after tower of empty houses. empty apartments. So it's got to wear that particular, that is definitely going to continue down, because the opposite to what happened in the West, rather than restricting supply and pumping up monetary demand, they in effect did the opposite, and they've caused a huge property bubble, which now at the national level and at the medium to poor houses level simply has to fall.